The idea of individual learning objectives, again, this is something that I had a lot of experience with abroad, where the best possible environments I've been in did everything they could in a team context. And it's important to reiterate the team lens here, and my lens being football, of developing individuals within the group, as opposed to focusing on we've won a game, therefore we're a good team. And this is saying that after 10 years or so of coaching, it wasn't something that shifted in me until I got to the UK. So I've got a real passion around this individual development piece, integrating individual learning plans or learning objectives for young players as part of redefining success, and again, co-creating those kind of plans with them. What do they like? What would they like to work on, and what do they think they're best at? So have you guys got experience around implementing this stuff in hockey or netball? Grant, I'll go to you first around how you can really ensure that individuals are being tailored for and being stretched and challenged based on where they're at in their development in your context.
Yeah, for me, it's those little individual conversations. We're really lucky in hockey that we get to roll subs quite frequently. So, and for me, it's actually letting them make the mistakes, but we can deal with that really live on the day. So I don't like to take them off when they made a mistake, but we're rolling subs quite frequently, and we have a pretty good policy around when you roll, and it's something you can fix by a little whisper in the ear and say, what do you think about that, and question them and help them during the game. That's a really, really key one with me, is those individual conversations, and helping them by they can go back on in 5 minutes and try and rectify something that hasn't been quite going right in the last 10 minutes. So those little individual conversations with players are really, really key, and helping them to understand where they might need to be on the field, where they might need to be looking. I'm not so big on instructional from the sidelines type behaviour. I'm always really, really interested, and I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on this, Dave, as to when you watch the English Premier League, right? You see those managers and their performances on the sideline and their little sort of, I call it the idiot box where they get into, right? Does that work? I mean, it's such a big field, and the gesticulating and instructional stuff that happens from the sideline. The same, but might be a smaller, more intimate environment. But does that actually work?
Look, I think this goes back to the concept of control. And I think this perception that we as the coach can influence it. I have no doubt that in a critical moment, the coach getting a piece of information to a player that's potentially passed on to the group or to the group can make an impact. I don't think we can ever underestimate the role of the coach to see things differently from their perspective. But I agree with you that teams, particularly when we're talking about youth sport, we're not talking about winning a Premier League or FA Cup. We're talking about developing people through sport and ensuring they stay in the game. Then we've got to look at it and go, well, they've got to have their experience, and our behavior could be mimicked by our players. So if we're behaving poorly, it's likely they might do the same, for example. So yeah, I think it's a challenge, because with the access we have to sport across codes on TV through all sorts of mediums these days, it's very easy for inexperienced coaches to mimic the behavior that they see in a performance context. And we're talking about the elite level, the 0.1% of the 1%, and that's not what community and youth sport's about. It's a very different beast. So I think we've got to be mindful there around that behavior piece. So it's a really good pickup, Grant. Sure, is there anything from your perspective on that or the individual stuff?
Yeah, I suppose I've been involved at a national and a regional level where I've seen player profiles, one-on-one systems, at camps, and I do question the purpose of them and why we do that. Is that because we've rolled them out before? And do they understand the language? Is it a summative report versus an ongoing conversation? So I think when time is precious for our teenagers, they are pulled in absolutely multiple directions. So they've got NCEA, they've offered leadership opportunities at school. We're asking them to be on top of everything all of the time, and then come into our sport environment, which might be this much of their life, and it's supposed to impact their well-being positively, and suddenly it becomes another stressor. So how do we help them manage all of that through a snapshot? If you've got to really learn to be a speed data. If you've only got 5 minutes for a one-on-one or a catch-up with that athlete, what would be the one or two questions that you could have, and have those up your sleeve all the time? I'm not sure on player profiles, because I have to understand, especially in youth sport, do they mean, if we ask our players, what do they mean to them? Does it? We're coaching at the end of the day is the art of behaviour change, isn't it? So we're trying to shift behaviour, whether it be physically, socially, emotionally as well, and to get them to all come together. But a player profile that provides a summative report of where they are and that snapshot in time doesn't go back to the process and the ongoing learning journey. So skillfully craft throughout your season those little one-on-one catch-ups.
Yeah.
As I think, Grant, going back to your athlete centre, that puts athletes at the heart of it. Then you can check in, then you can pivot as you need to throughout the season and be okay to pivot just by having those conversations with individual players, because then that comes into your collective plan, doesn't it, and how you do the trainings.
No doubt. I think as adults, we're often guilty of overcomplicating the environment. So again, whether that's replicating the performance narrative, I've seen individual learning plans which have 35 different criteria which are evaluated by numbers, and I just think that is horrific. Like, it's an Excel spreadsheet. That turns me off as an adult. How's a teenager going to engage with evaluating every competency across a sport that they might require? For me, a good individual learning plan might have 1, 2, 4 things across the 4 corners, which is a model, I guess, in coaching around psychological, social, technical, tactical, and physical. And they might have one thing they think they're really good at, and then they might just think about one of those things during training or at the game, and that might just be a constant dialogue. As you've both alluded to, the power of those conversations linking back to the plan. For me, it should just be a simple one-pager that they're driving and we're supporting. So
yeah, I think you nailed it there. They're driving it. With autonomy, we know about self-determination. There's frameworks and miles that sit behind this, but where's the autonomy for the players to own their journey?